The results of the Manhattan Project, while having made a weapon against innocent people, was a triumph for the coming nuclear age and progress of mankind. Take, for example, that when a child breaks their arm, they may get an X-ray or CT scan to find the break and correct it while at the hospital. Cancer patients may undergo radiotherapy, which uses high doses of radiation to ease tumors, get rid of them, and/or prevent them from returning. Nuclear power plants make up almost 11% of the world's electricity, and some countries get over 50% of their energy from these nuclear reactors. These, like many other things, are lasting memory of the Manhattan Project. The triumphs of this once secret project included the finding of new cures for old diseases, new advances in technology, and cleaner renewable energy, ultimately sparking the beginning of a new age, the nuclear age. This project was once classified 70 years ago during the Second World War. It promoted the science and findings of nuclear power, focused on creating a weapon of mass destruction in order to end World War II and silence Japan's endless conflict. Only key scientists and few other government officials knew the end goal they were working towards. No one knew that what they'd create would eradicate thousands of Japanese civilians. In early 1939, there was an announcement that German scientists like Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann had discovered fission. German physicist Leo Szilard and many others became greatly worried by this, fearing that Germany might produce an atomic bomb. This prompted Szilard and two others to contact Albert Einstein and request that he write to Belgium to tell them to not sell uranium to Germany. Soon, Szilard and Einstein got together to write a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Beginning in mid to late 1939, after Alexander Sachs had delivered the Einstein-Szilard letters to President Roosevelt, that of which told of the benefits and dangers of nuclear fission that had recently been discovered, the Manhattan Project soon became active, receiving its code name 2 years later in 1941. At first, research regarding the project was conducted in a few select universities: the University of Chicago, Columbia University, and the University of California, Berkeley. In December of 1942, 3 years after the project began, a breakthrough was finally achieved when scientist Enrico Fermi led a group to conduct the first controlled nuclear chain reaction at the University of Chicago. This was a milestone that allowed funds to be distributed freely, which launched the project into advancement at a lightning-fast pace. Soon, nuclear facilities were built at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Hanford, Washington, and possibly the most infamous of the three, Los Alamos, New Mexico, where the main assembly plant was built. At the Oak Ridge facility, the X-10 graphite reactor was the first pilot reactor to purify the uranium that was used for the bomb Little Boy. Uranium-235 is fissile, meaning it would be able to undergo fission, unlike uranium-238, which was stable and not a likely candidate for a nuclear bomb since fission was needed. It took months of tedious work and waiting just for the valuable uranium-235 to be extracted from the much more abundant but non-reactive uranium-238. At the facility in Hanford, a water-cooled reactor, dubbed the B reactor, was processing plutonium to use in the much larger and befittingly named bomb, Fat Man. A groundbreaking discovery of cooling systems for these reactors would become of the water coolant system of the B reactor, which would be able to maintain a suitable heat at a constant rate, whereas the air-cooled X-10 reactor was more liable to fluctuate in temperature. While the fuel for these two bombs was being produced in experimental environments, thousands of people took residence within secret cities. These secret cities were highly guarded, just like the project itself, and allowed those who were working along with the scientists to live in a closer vicinity to where they worked, and gave a more secure space for the project to take place without prying eyes. Two designs were conceptualized in Los Alamos, New Mexico, at different sectors, one for a gun-type bomb and the other for an implosion type. Soon, the components of both bombs were finished and taken to Tinian Island. It should be pointed out that these two harbingers of death were not dropped at the same time, but were just mere days apart from each other. On August 6, 1945, Little Boy was flown across the ocean by the B-29 Enola Gay and dropped above its target, Hiroshima, Japan. Then 3 days later, on August 9th, Fat Man was dropped above Nagasaki from the B-29 Boxcar. Chaos ensued. Survivors said it was like hell. Those unfortunate enough to be caught close to ground zero were vaporized. Even worse, though, were those who would be forced to endure hours or days of pain, with skin peeling off and/or intense radiation burns, turning their skin a dark and completely unrecognizable color. A Russian woman by the name of Kaleria Palchikov-Drago even described what it was like to aid those unlucky enough to be caught in the fires and radiation, in a hopeless battle to comfort the suffering before they passed.
There's those people whining away, groaning, and asking for help. And I thought it was my duty to help them. You know, I didn't exactly have anything against them or for them, so I thought, well, I just might as well help them, because they were just people.
They were just people. Civilians, women and children, innocent people who were vaporized or forced to suffer at the hands of those who decreed that the bombs be dropped. Those who witnessed the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki will never forget it, and it is a widely argued topic as to whether the United States had taken it too far and acted upon sole hatred and barbarism against Japan, or done it completely out of necessity to end the war. President Truman never really decided that himself. He didn't shrug off his personal responsibility for the lives that were lost, but he didn't apologize for his decision either. He didn't enjoy the thought of killing those who did not deserve to be killed, but he did as he thought was necessary to prevent more from perishing. The one thing that can be agreed upon is that though many lives are lost due to the power of the atomic bomb, many more can and have been saved by the research from discoveries of what radiation can do. One may not realize that we as a society have been using radiation as medicine since Marie and Pierre Curie discovered radium. Radium had been used to cure or treat things like acne, but more so was used to treat cancer, whether that be alone or used alongside surgery. Radium, while milder today, is still being used in cancer treatment by the name of radium-223 or Xofigo. Due to this, it wasn't a completely new concept to apply radioisotopes in a medical setting once the Manhattan Project came around. In fact, the project cut short a growing demand for such clinically used radioisotopes, and actually gave an opportunity to produce artificial radioisotopes at an industrial level. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki even propelled the notion that radioactivity would revolutionize medicine. Even with the increasing stress of a Cold War America, there was hope that the destructive use of radiation, as seen during the final moments of World War II, would be redeemed by the medicinal uses of radioisotopes. Though the thoughts and dreams of cancer being completely eradicated through the use of radiation wasn't achieved, the promotion of radioisotopes by the U.S. government helped contribute to huge advances in medicine and biology. Things such as the mapping of metabolic pathways to sequencing genes was built on the routine use of radiolabels. In our modern world, where threats have become increasingly dangerous, it's important to keep hope that human error may not lead to the loss of more lives in such a horrific way. Even the two cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki have been rebuilt from their ashes, like the great mythical phoenix, which only gives more truth to what Winston Churchill had declared in his final parliamentary speech. By a process of sublime irony, we have reached a stage in this story where safety will be the sturdy child of terror and survival the twin brother of annihilation.